So, yesterday we talked about the importance of reading the scriptures, and we began with Adi Shankaracharya talking about how reading the Bhagavad Gita actually benefits us. It burns up all our past karmic reactions, activities, or rather the karmic results of our prior activities. It's as good as taking a dip in the Ganges river. It cleanses one's anarthas, lust, anger, greed, illusion, and pride and envy. The entire Bhagavad Gita begins with Dhritarashtra asking a question. So I'm actually going to share my screen so we can go through the shlokas quickly. We have a problem with my mouse. So chapter 1 is titled Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which is actually Arjuna lamenting. And so Bhagavad Gita begins with Dhritarashtra asking these questions. So both the parties have assembled on the battlefield. What did they do? And in response to this one question, Sanjaya begins to relay what is happening in the battlefield and what he hears conversation specifically happening between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. And the first thing that Sanjaya talks about is how Duryodhana walks up to Dronacharya and speaks a few words, beginning with an underhanded criticism, where he says, you ended up training Drishtadyumna, the son of Drupada, your greatest enemy, and now he's such a great warrior. He's not fighting on our side, he's fighting on the Pandava side. So the context of the war is discussed between 1.1 to 1.13 shlokas. So Duryodhana talks about all the various famous warriors on the Pandava side. He lists them all. And then, as if to say, our army is not any less. And he begins to talk about warriors supporting him, which is Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwathama, Vikarna, Bhurishrava, etc. And in the context, he says, many, many great heroes are ready to lay down their lives for me, he says, for my sake. All of them are very well equipped. All of them are experienced in the military sciences. And he reassures himself, of course, the Kauravas have the much larger army, 11 Akshavanis compared to the Pandavas 7. So definitely they had more commanders on their side than the Pandavas did. But all the Pandavas needed on their side was Lord Krishna. So Duryodhana is trying to tell Dronacharya, we are quite strong because we are protected perfectly by grandfather Bhishma. And then he contrasts it to the strength of the Pandavas, where he says, yes, the Pandavas are protected by Bhima, but in comparison to Bhishma, Bhima's power or strength is limited. And then he exhorts his side to give full support to grandfather Bhishma. Make sure that they put up a good fight. Knowing that his grandson was displaying some symptoms of fear by talking like this, Bhishma blows his conch. So this sets the context for the first set of shlokas, which is shlokas 1 to 13, which talks about the preparation for war. And then from 14 to 20 is the symbols of victory. So Sanjaya refers to their conch shells as transcendental. The chariot is drawn by white horses. And then the first person to blow his conch shell on the Pandava side is the Lord himself. So each of these conch shells have a name. It says here Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Poundra. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula and Sahadeva blew the Subhosha and Mani Pushpaka. So why do these conch shells have names? They are actually considered to be personalities. That's why they have names. So Sanjaya is talking about how the Lord begins by blowing his conch shell, and that was a signal to the Pandavas to blow theirs. And therefore, the Lord's conch shell is transcendental as much as his devotees' conch shell are also transcendental. And then Sanjaya says, the blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. And this concludes the section about the ominous signs of defeat for the Kauravas. So at that time, the son of Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot, bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Arjuna said, O infallible one, hey Achyuta, please draw my chariot between the two armies, so that I may see those present here who desire to fight, and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Then Arjuna says, let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. And after Arjuna says this, Lord Krishna draws up the chariot in between the two armies, and he parks his chariot right in front of Bhishma and Drona. And what does the Lord say? He's in the middle between the two armies, and he just spreads his arm around and he says, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. All the Kurus means not just on that side. Ultimately, both sides are Kurus only. So the Lord was pointing out on both sides and saying, look at all the Kurus who are present here. Apparently, what the Lord said was the trigger for Arjuna's feelings of uncertainty and anxiety. And in this particular shloka, 10 different types of family members are mentioned. There, Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties, his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers. And then the next set of shlokas, which is from 21 to 27, it depicts Krishna's role as the Bhakta Vatsala. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. And then from 28 to 46, Arjuna's experiencing some misgivings about fighting. So he starts explaining why he shouldn't fight. So Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. My whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end. My Mogandiva is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshidi." It's almost as if Arjuna is telling Krishna, "Hey Madhava, hey killer of the Keshidi." Madhava means Madhavi is always besides Madhava. You are on my side, but you are going to be the cause of all this misfortune, or rather, I am going to be the cause of all this misfortune. So if you are here on my side, it should be quite the opposite. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. So first, Arjuna is saying, at first, Arjuna is saying, I don't feel like killing my own family members. Then he says, even if I kill and become victorious, I really will not be able to enjoy myself. And in shlokas 30 to 35, Arjuna is stretching his argument even further. O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will be derived from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? So Arjuna is pointing out to Krishna, hey Krishna, you are the ultimate maintainer. You are Jagadishvara. Aren't you supposed to maintain all of us? Why all this destruction unnecessarily? Ultimately, you are the one who's maintaining all of us. How can you expect me to derive pleasure by killing? So here comes the third reason. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune? And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? So Arjuna is saying, okay, they may not have morals, they may be overcome by greed, but that's not my character. So why should I engage in criminal activities just because they are engaging in criminal activities, which is going to result in sinful activities? With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Our Shastras say that elders should always be part of the family, because it's the elders who teach the next generation the samskaras. And if the elders are not around to teach samskaras, then the next generation is going to become irreligious. They are going to be impious. They may engage themselves in impious activities. Then Arjuna is saying, when irreligion is prominent in the family of Krishna, what happens? The women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, or descendant of Rishi, comes unwanted progeny. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, if I allow this situation to unfold as I envision it, which is I will be victorious, I will kill everybody, and then all these women will get polluted. And then if the women get polluted, they will have children out of wedlock. And what happens when there are a lot of children born out of wedlock? The next shloka Arjuna says, an increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performance for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. So if there are no samskaras, if there are no elders left to guide, protect the family, everything will just fall apart. Nobody will be able to do pitradan for the forefathers. For them, this is the food, the annual food that is offered is the Shraddha ceremony. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. So you can see how Arjuna is building upon his anxiety, and he's thinking way into the future. So much so he's thinking about the forefathers also. They will all fall down because nobody is going to be offering them any food on an annual basis. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. So he's saying, not only will I go to hell because I would have committed so many sins, but because all of this other samskaras will not be upheld anymore, even the ancestors will have to be sent to hell. And he is backing it up by saying, I am not making this story up. I actually heard it from authoritative figures. Essentially, Arjuna is saying, what's the point of this battle? Every one of us is going to be in hell. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. And then, something that a Kshatriya would never say, better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. If a Kshatriya has been called to fight, this is not something he should be saying. I will give up my weapons, I'll not fight back, let them kill me, I'm okay with that. And the chapter ends with Sanjaya saying, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. So, this was the doubt acronym, the trajectory of the first chapter. Duryodhana's mindset, Dhritarashtra's mindset, signs of victory for the Pandavas, Arjuna's sudden hesitation, right? How he becomes bewildered because he's so attached to his family members. The turning point is that he recognizes that something is happening to him, which is very unlike him. So Arjuna is not an ordinary human being. So his father is Indra, and he's considered to be an incarnation of the great sage Nara, the twin sages called Nara Narayan, who eternally live in Badrikashram. So Nara is Arjuna and Narayana is said to be Lord Krishna. So Arjuna gets weapons from Lord Shiva, from Indra. He can just call upon these weapons anytime he wants. But then he is put under illusion by the Lord himself, because the time had come to uproot all the weeds of impious people so that dharma can flourish again. So although Arjuna is a Nitya Siddha, he comes from the spiritual world, he's not an ordinary human being, he's not a conditioned soul. Nevertheless, temporarily, he is made to behave like a Nitya Baddha. Nitya Baddha means somebody who repeatedly takes birth, death, goes through that cycle of samsara. So all of this is being orchestrated by the Lord. So we cannot doubt Arjuna's prowess as a fighter. But temporarily, Krishna creates this little confusion in his mind. And that sets the stage for the Lord to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So we'll look at how chapter 2 starts. So Arjuna has given 4 reasons why he should not fight. And we discussed that the single word summary for chapter 1 is lamentation. Lamentation because Arjuna is giving a lot of reasons and excuses why he should not fight. He's lamenting, he's saying, no, I can't do this. So chapter 2 in Sanskrit, the title of this chapter is Sankhya Yoga. The word Sankhya means to count, analytical. So what is so analytical about this chapter? This is the second longest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. It has 72 verses. And if you read chapter 2, it's as good as you having read the entire Bhagavad Gita, because chapter 2 is essentially a summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. And towards the end, I will talk about why it's considered the summary of the Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 2 begins with Sanjaya saying, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. So how does Krishna respond to all of the reasons that Arjuna has given so far? Not very kindly. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. Krishna is warning Arjuna. So what happened to you? You're talking like this all of a sudden? Don't you understand the value of life? If you really understood the value of life, you wouldn't be speaking like this. And Krishna is saying, you think you're going to be famous by speaking like this? Not at all. Oh, your reputation is going for a toss, because you're not making any sense whatsoever. In the next shloka, the Lord is telling Arjuna, O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the dead. So Krishna is critiquing Arjuna, but at the same time, he is also praising him, reminding him, you've defeated many warriors before. So why this sudden weakness? Weakness of the heart. And Krishna's calling his excuses all petty, all nonsense reasons Arjuna has given so far. That's in Krishna's mind. But Arjuna doesn't give up. You see, right now, Arjuna is dealing with Krishna like as if they are friends. So Arjuna responds to Krishna by saying, "O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counter attack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship?" So Arjuna is arguing with the Lord, saying, I mean, you just called me weak and impotent. You actually expect me to kill Bhishma and Drona? I should actually fall at their feet because they are worthy of my worship. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. See, in our culture, elders are always supposed to be looked up to and respected, even if they are wrong. But Arjuna is arguing something totally different. A Kshatriya is not allowed to beg for a living. A Brahmana is allowed to beg for a living. Because a Brahmana is not supposed to earn money, period. He should just knock on doors to seek alms. That's the proper way in which Brahmanas are supposed to live. Kshatriyas are not allowed to beg. They are supposed to protect dharma, and in return for protecting their citizens, they are allowed to collect tax from the citizens to maintain themselves. Definitely not going begging door to door, not for Kshatriyas. But that's what Arjuna is saying. I'd rather beg than kill great souls, even though they may be wrong. But because they are my superiors, I will respect them. And then his final reason, the fifth reason why he should not fight, is in Shloka 6. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. And in the next shloka, the mood of Arjuna changes from this shloka onwards. Up to shloka 6, Krishna is a friend. From shloka 7 onwards, Krishna becomes Guru. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. And then Sanjaya speaks, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastisers of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. What does Krishna do? He smiles. Time had come. The stage is set for the Lord to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So what does the Lord do? Immediately, he takes the position of spiritual master and chastisement follows. So the Lord severely chastises Arjuna. He tells him, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So this is the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, which is from Shloka 11 of chapter 2. So with that, we will look at the slides today. So as we said, the title of today's chapter is Sankhya Yoga, the analytical study of the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, it is the analytical study of matter. Matter that is observable to us, matter that can be experienced by us. So if you simply observe life and see the cycles of birth, death, old age, and disease, Krishna is essentially telling Arjuna, you should easily recognize that you're going to keep changing bodies. It's just a cycle. So you are worried about the bodies. Krishna is saying, I'm worried about the souls. Therefore, from chapter 2, Krishna has to redirect Arjuna's attention from the bodily concept of I, me, mine. That's my family member, my kingdom, my happiness, my this, my that. So he has to reorient him to start thinking about something that is eternal, which is the soul. The soul is going to keep taking new bodies. But Arjuna was talking like as if Drona and Bhishma are not going to get another body in the future. So here, before we begin, let's offer our most humble obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So obviously Arjuna is in a stressful situation. Question is, how do we manage stressful situations in life? Well, if you know who you truly are, then you will not be misguided by apparently stressful situations. Towards the latter half of this chapter, we are going to talk about how, as a human being, all of us have two duties. One duty is towards the body, the other duty is towards the soul. Most of us are performing duties towards the body only. Most of us don't know what the duties are that we have to perform for ourselves as souls. And if we do both, how we can achieve happiness in this life. So, the acronym for today is Gita, beginning with Guru, where Arjuna has finally decided this is too complicated a matter. I need help. I need guidance. And therefore, from shlokas 11 to 30, Krishna is going to talk about the soul, to direct Arjuna's attention away from the body to the fact that he is spirit soul and everybody on that battlefield is also a spirit soul. Krishna then talks about two dharmas broadly, which is Swadharma and Nitya Dharma. Swadharma is the dharma based on bodily concept of life. We have some duties and responsibilities. Nitya Dharma means your duties and responsibilities based on your soul. Nitya means eternal, forever. So since we have two dharmas, we should perform both those dharmas, not just focus on one and ignore the other. If we do that, we'll be unhappy. And Krishna gives us the formula of happiness by developing a taste for Nitya Dharma and slowly letting go of your desire to hold on to your Swadharma. So when one is confused, you have to approach a guru to seek solutions. So we talked about how Arjuna is saying, Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha Pritchami tvam dharma sammudhacheta yachreyasyan nischitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. First thing Arjuna acknowledges is, I'm confused. I'm lost. I've become weak. Somebody else has to guide me now because I'm not in a position to make a decision for myself. Who's that somebody else? It cannot be anybody that you want. It has to be someone who's well versed in scriptures who can guide you. So, for every problem in life, there is an answer in the scriptures on what type of decision you should make. Hence, Arjuna is saying, since you are my supreme master, I'm asking you to instruct. So, here the relationship has changed from friendship to one of, I'm your student. I'm ready to hear from my guru. So, what are the symptoms of surrender? One is that we are eager to learn. Two is we have to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers in life. We don't have the answers to every life's problem. Most of us are ignorant about what to do in any given situation. And therefore, having a spiritual, bona fide spiritual master to guide us through the challenges of life is necessary. Krishna will emphasize more than once in the Bhagavad Gita about the importance of having a spiritual master. We have gurus for everything else. For mundane subjects in school, we have teachers. Similarly, because we have Nitya Dharma demands that you accept a guru so that the guru is guiding you on the spiritual path. But then in today's world, nobody cares about having a guru to genuinely guide them to the right path. So it does take a lot of courage and humility to accept one's own failures and one's own weaknesses. But unless we begin to acknowledge this, there's just no chance of success. So the first step towards solving a problem is to acknowledge that one has a problem. We talked about the three types of people, how they respond to the alarm clock. One doesn't even hear it. The second one hears it, shuts it down, ignores it. The third one jumps out of bed and gets their day started. So when you're facing difficulty, you should be asking yourself, why am I facing this difficulty? And dig deeper. So to be progressive in life, it is essential to cultivate humility because it protects us from being falsely proud of our accomplishments and strengths, which otherwise can prove futile in another situation or environment. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are. If you think Mukesh Ambani doesn't have problems, just because he's ultra wealthy. The richest people, the most famous people have problems just like you and I do. The most well-educated people have problems. The most successful people have problems. Politicians have problems. Businessmen have problems. Poor people have problems. Our entire life is filled with problems. If we don't understand that, how are we going to begin to help ourselves? So the first step is to understand that we are all suffering. And why are we suffering? Well, we are suffering because we have taken on a mistaken identity. Somewhere along the way, we lost our real ID card and we've taken up some other ID card thinking that's our real me. So our position currently is that we have an identity crisis, just as Arjuna is experiencing an identity crisis here. What is his identity crisis? I am this body. I want to protect my family, my wealth, my this, my that. So that's an unreal understanding of oneself, and therefore Krishna is going to rectify that. Krishna is going to correct that. And hence, from 11 to 26 onwards, Krishna talks about the soul. And the shloka begins as follows. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha deham tarapraptihi dherastatra namukhyati. Krishna is telling Arjuna, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Krishna is telling, even if you want to kill these people on the battlefield, you don't have the power to kill. You may destroy the body, but you can never touch the soul. And any which way, you can't destroy that body unless I give you permission. So death also does not take place without the Lord sanctioning it. So Krishna is saying your body keeps changing. The one thing that is staying constant in your body, that concept of I. It's that same you if you're 90 years old, it's the same you when you were 9 months old. You keep referring to yourself as I. The external body has completely changed. But you know innately who is this I? This I is the same person, the spirit soul. So when the spirit soul has no use for this current body, it will just exit it and go take on a new body as per previous karmas and as per desires. So we covered this particular slide in the Secrets of Gita Reveal program, but just a quick summary of this slide. When we talk about I, this I consists of the gross body and the subtle body, which is the Sthula Sharira and the Sukshma Sharira. What is obvious to you is the physical body, which is comprised of 5 material elements. At the time of death, you have to separate from this body. But we all have another body. It's called the subtle body, the Sukshma Sharira. The subtle body is your mind, intelligence, and your false ego. So this subtle body goes along with the soul to occupy the new body. So the subtle body will always travel with you as long as you are changing bodies. The physical body you have to leave behind at the time of death. So which means if you have to experience liberation, you also have to give up your subtle body. You have to give up your material mind, material intelligence, and your false sense of ego. That brings you to moksha. So at the time of death, you have to give up the physical body. At the time of moksha, you are giving up both your physical body as well as your soul, until you remain and come back to your original position as Satchidanand. That's the original position of the spirit soul, the Atma. So at death, you give up your physical body. At the time of liberation, you have to give up both your physical body and your subtle. So Krishna begins to speak many verses about the soul. But in essence, the Lord says, Nainam chindanti shastrani, Nainam dahati pavakaha, Na chainam kledayantyapo, Na shoshayati marutaha. Krishna says the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. So, hey Arjuna, you're just killing the external garment. This external body is like a machine. The soul is never destroyed. It is always eternal. So why are you complaining about death? So the soul is seated in the heart. We said that the original position of the soul is Satchidanand. Sat means eternal, Chit means knowledge, and Ananda means full of bliss, which means the soul is eternal, it's full of knowledge, and it is completely blissful. But the soul is seeking something all the time. The soul is constantly searching for God. Why? Because the soul is a part and parcel of the Supreme God. What is the symptom of the soul? The symptom of the soul is consciousness. So, which means when the soul exits the body, you can pinch the body is not going to experience any pain. But as long as the soul occupies the body, anywhere on the body part you pinch or you pierce, it's going to experience pain. And the only reason the soul, the body experiences these sensations is because the soul is present, and as long as the soul is present, there is consciousness. So the symptom of the soul is consciousness, and the soul is always seeking the Supreme Lord. So, and of course, the soul keeps traveling from one body to another. So the Lord is saying that the spirit soul is eternal and indestructible, whereas material nature, which includes this physical body, is temporary. And Krishna is saying, don't be bewildered because you have to change your body. Because anyway, one day you have to change your body, either on this battlefield or naturally. Rather, Krishna is saying one should remain fixed in prescribed duties which purify and allow one to realize the eternal self. So Krishna's point is, don't build so many hypothetical scenarios. If this happens, that will happen, and if that happens, something else will happen, and if that happens, something else will happen. Krishna's preference is that we focus on our duties. Because performing our prescribed duties itself, Krishna says, will purify you, which will help you on the path of self-realization. When you get caught up on the bodily platform, it leads to the degradation of one's consciousness. Krishna has anyway introduced the topic of reincarnation, but there's a specific shloka here. Jatasya hidro mrityuho dhruvam janma vritasya cha tasmada pariharyerthe natvam shochitam arhasi. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, one who has taken his birth is sure to die. And after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Krishna is saying, stop complaining. This is just a basic fact of life. If we've taken birth, we have to die. If we've given up this body, we have to take up, unless you are liberated. So anyway, your duty as a Kshatriya is to fight. Kshatriya desires an opportunity to fight, especially to protect dharma. So I'm not sure what you're complaining about. You just focus on your duty. Don't worry about what if this happens, Krishna? What if that happens, Krishna? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? Too many permutations and combinations of what ifs. So it's a very nice instruction for you and me. Not to build a very dark scenario of life. Rather, just focus on your duty, and then whatever happens, happens. So, Krishna talks about two dharmas, which is the Swadharma and Nitya Dharma. So, from 31 to 53, we're going to quickly read these shlokas because these are very, very instructional for us. Now, we're going to talk about duties and responsibilities based on your body. And Krishna is instructing Arjuna, considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And so there is no need for hesitation. Krishna is saying, such opportunities should be welcomed by you as a Kshatriya, where you are required by your Varna to protect Dharma. When it's your duty to protect Dharma, you should have zero hesitation, even if it means the other side is your own family. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them to the doors of the heavenly planet. So Krishna is saying, anybody who dies on this battlefield, they will go straight to Swarga. What exactly are you complaining about? It doesn't matter if the battle is adharmic or dharmic. On both sides, the result of losing your body on the battlefield is you go to heaven. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. Very, very important for us to understand this shloka. Krishna is saying, you and I have a responsibility also to uphold dharma. We are not Kshatriyas where we have to go out and battle. But each one of us in our own small ecosystem have our duties and responsibilities as per the Vedic scriptures. Krishna is saying you better do your duties and responsibilities. If you don't, anyway, you're going to incur sins for neglecting your duties. So anybody who neglects their duties as per Varnashram, as per Vedic scriptures, what is Krishna saying? We have to accept the sin of neglecting our duties. Here, of course, if a Kshatriya refuses to fight, there goes his reputation. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Krishna is saying, what could be worse? When your reputation is spoiled, there's nothing worse than losing your reputation. It's worse than death. Dishonor is worse than death, Krishna is telling Arjuna. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you've left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? So the next shloka, Krishna is giving a profit and loss calculation for Arjuna. O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Krishna's instruction to Arjuna is he should fight, because if he walks away from the battlefield, it is a much greater sin. He has to accept the sin. Arjuna was saying, oh, if I kill so many people, so much sin, etc. No, Krishna is saying it's a dharmic war. There is no sin when you're fighting to protect dharma. As a matter of fact, there is far greater sin for you if you avoid your prescribed duties and responsibilities. Therefore, as a Kshatriya, get up and fight. This win-win scenario for Arjuna is that if he dies on the battlefield, he'll go to heaven and enjoy himself. If he wins in the battlefield, well, he can enjoy himself on this earth. What does he really have to lose? So Krishna then says, do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by doing so, you shall never incur sin. So Krishna is saying, don't worry about the results. Don't worry about after doing your duty, will you get what you want or you will lose whatever you already have. Don't worry after doing your duty, will you be happy? Will you be sad? Will you be successful? Will you lose? Will you be victorious or will you be defeated? Krishna is saying, why don't you fight for the sake of fighting? which means we should simply do our duties and not worry about what will happen, what may not happen, because by simply doing one's duties, Krishna says, we will not incur any sin. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So up to 38, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to fight because he says that's your moral responsibility. That's your dharmic duty. So now Krishna is going to switch and move to the other side. If you look at a railway track, two parallel lines. So one line is your Swadharma and the other line is your Nitya Dharma. So now Krishna is going to focus on duty relating to the soul. What is the dharma of the soul? So 39 to 53. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through the analytical study. Remember, we said analytical study means an observation of Prakriti, the observation of how matter functions. Something comes, it stays for a while, and it disappears. Just looking at that alone, one should not be perturbed about death. As a matter of fact, Krishna is ultimately saying, we all have to prepare for death. Better start doing it now. What's going to happen one day or the other. Don't be surprised when it happens. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. Fruitive results means you have material desires and you want material outcomes. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So Krishna is saying, when you act with ultimate knowledge that you are a spirit soul, you anyway don't have to worry about karmic reactions. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So whatever progress you make on the spiritual path, Krishna says, it will protect you from the most dangerous situations. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. What is their aim? O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So Krishna is contrasting those who practice spirituality versus those who don't. Krishna is saying those who practice spirituality, their goal is singularly self-realization. Therefore, their aim is one. They are focused, they are determined. Whereas those who are chasing material desires, Krishna says they are just spread out thin. They are chasing so many different things. They don't even have a purpose in life. They don't know why they're chasing what they're chasing, how long they will chase. None of that is clear to them. They are just chasing blindly. Everybody else is doing it. I am also doing it. Krishna then criticizes the Vedic scriptures or men who follow the Vedic scriptures to attain, to get material benefits. Krishna is calling them men of small knowledge, are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. So Krishna is saying, some really foolish men, they pray to this god for wealth, that god for this, another god for that. And they say, life is all about being happy. Happiness means I have to get whatever I want. And if I have to get whatever I want by doing whatever sacrifice, I'll be ready to do that sacrifice. Krishna is criticizing such people. But they are only focused on material benefits, which means they are focused on the Swadharma. They don't know anything about Nitya Dharma. And his criticism continues in the next shloka. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Krishna is saying, if you're chasing money, if you're chasing property, if you're chasing whatever, how many ever degrees, if you're chasing education, if you're chasing fame, you will not have a taste for bhakti. Bhakti cannot flourish in somebody who's too distracted by so many other things. That will end when you give up your body. Your fame will be gone when your body is gone. All your degrees gone when your body goes into the ground. All the wealth that you worked so hard gone when you have to give up this body. He's saying such people who are simply blindly chasing things, how will they develop bhakti? It's not possible. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. Three modes means Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamo. And for the first time, Krishna is telling Arjuna, you have to go beyond these three gunas. You have to go higher than the Sattvagun. Because even Sattvagun puts you in duality. So Krishna is saying, be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Understand who you are. Krishna is saying, you are not this body. You are a spirit soul. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. Much later in the 15th chapter, Krishna will say that the purpose of all the Vedic scriptures is to discover who is the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is saying, for those who know that the purpose of the Vedas is to discover who is the Supreme Lord, they will stop pursuing mundane things in the Vedic scriptures and simply focus on the Supreme Lord directly. Because ultimately you're studying the Vedas to discover who's Lord Vishnu. But if you've heard from your spiritual master that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Lord, then don't waste your time with the Vedic scriptures, Krishna says. Follow the instructions of the acharyas, who are representatives of the Lord, sent by the Lord, and simply worship the Supreme Lord. A very famous shloka. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of actions. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Krishna, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, emphasizes duty. Duty first, duty first, duty comes first. Duties and responsibilities are the top priority for Krishna. He does not like it if you try to avoid your duties and responsibilities. Duties and responsibilities are there. Wife has certain duties and responsibility. Husband has certain duties and responsibilities. Children have duties and responsibilities. Parents have duties and responsibilities. Krishna does not like it if we give up our duties and responsibilities, simply because it's inconvenient, it is hard, it is difficult, it is stressful. What is Krishna saying? Never be attached to not doing your duty. You just do your duty. Don't worry about the results, because the results are not in your hands. I dislike results. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. So Krishna is saying, don't worry about whether you will succeed or whether you will fail. Simply do your duty. And when you're only focused on doing your duty, Krishna is saying, such a person, such equanimity where you're focused on the duty and not worried about the results, Krishna is saying that is yoga. And in the next shloka, he is instructing Arjuna, O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional sense. Krishna is saying, by worshipping me, you should stay away from activities that will take you away from me. And then you can surrender to me. Remember, Arjuna has said, Hey Krishna, you are my teacher, I am your disciple, I surrender to you now. Now, Arjuna has verbally used the word surrender, but he doesn't surrender until the 11th chapter. Until he fully surrenders, he's asking questions. So, since Arjuna has brought up the topic of surrender, Krishna is telling him how he should surrender, which is keep away from bad things by performing bhakti. And when you perform bhakti for a long enough time, you will automatically be surrendered to the Supreme. And in the next sentence, Krishna is criticizing the others who don't surrender to him. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. Misers because they are only thinking about themselves. They are not thinking about the greater good of everybody else and the Supreme God. What is the benefit of engaging in bhakti? A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Krishna is saying by performing bhakti, even karmic reactions in this life, your prarabdha karma, can be changed. Your destiny can change just by performing bhakti. Why? Because the Lord is in control. Who's driving the chariot? Is it Arjuna or is it Krishna? So similarly, if you allow Krishna to drive your chariot in life, then he takes care of things. You don't have to worry. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries. So Krishna is ultimately saying, how do you get liberation? By being a devotee. Because by becoming a devotee, by performing your Nitya Dharma very nicely, you will achieve liberation in this life. So, conclusion is two dharmas Krishna has spoken about, Swadharma and Nitya Dharma or Sanatana. Swadharma means I, me, my family, my society, my nation, and like this, it goes on. So we all have responsibilities towards our family. Krishna is never advocating for you to give up your duties and responsibilities to your family, no matter how tough the situation may be. We have to perform our duty. But Krishna is saying, along with that, do also your Nitya Dharma. Do bhakti, Krishna is saying. How do you perform bhakti? By chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, by reading the Bhagavad Gita, by doing devotional service, by associating with other sadhus. So this way, nicely, you can balance both of them out. You can take care of your family very nicely. You can also take care of your soul's desire to be connected to the Supreme Lord. So do not neglect your higher dharma, because if you neglect it, it's like you're polishing the cage and forgetting to feed the parrot that is residing in that cage. One day that bird is going to die. Of course, in this case, the analogy is that the soul is going to go into a degraded condition. It may go take on animal bodies, insect bodies, bird bodies. It may go down in the process of transmigration. So that's the risk that you and I take when we don't perform our Nitya Dharma. Krishna is never asking us to give up our swadharma. He's asking us to focus on our nitya. So, which leads us to the last section of this chapter. Krishna is talking about how great self realized souls have achieved this state of bliss and happiness. And Arjuna is curious. He says, oh, how do these people act? How do these people talk? What is their goal of life? Right? So, in this case, Krishna says if you follow material desires, that's going to give you temporary happiness, which is of a lower taste. But if you follow your spiritual desires, that is a higher taste, Krishna says, it will give you what is ananda. Sukh plus ananda, the difference between the two. So, what happens with lower taste? You just simply indulge your senses. The minute your senses observe things, you become attached to it. It creates some lust. If your desire is not fulfilled, you become angry. And when you become angry, you become bewildered, you lose your intelligence, and soon you lose sense of what is right and wrong. And this leads to a lot of problems in society. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, give up this lower taste because it's dangerous, or rather control it. What is the higher taste? Krishna is saying all your senses must be regulated. What your eyes see, what your ears hear, what your lips taste, what your mouth speaks, what your nose smells, everything should be regulated, Krishna says. Don't allow your senses to dictate what you do when you do. When you regulate your senses, you remain in an undisturbed state of mind. And hence, even in difficult situations, you can maintain your blissful state, which is actually the state that we all are desiring. And in this case, Krishna is using an analogy. Yada samharate chayam purmongani vasarvashah indriyani indriyartebhyah tasya prajna pratishtita. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Krishna is saying, you will not lose your taste for lower desires. It will always be there. But when it tries to attack you, you should be like this tortoise. When the tortoise is attacked, it withdraws its sensitive parts into the hard shell and thus stays protected. So this sensitive shell, or this shell, is you're developing your spirituality. When you develop your spirituality, then your lower senses are not attacked by lower tastes. How do you experience higher taste? Krishna is saying, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Krishna is saying, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense object remains. But seizing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, param drishtva, he is fixed in consciousness. So when you begin to practice bhakti, Krishna says you will experience a different type of taste. Your tastes will change. What made you happy before will no longer satisfy you, because you have discovered something far more beautiful, far more blissful. And slowly you will get rid of your vices, the anarthas that we thought. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Krishna is saying temptations will always be there in the form of desires. So Krishna is comparing desires to like rivers gushing into the ocean. The ocean is always being filled with water, but the ocean is never disturbed. Its boundaries are never disturbed. So Krishna is saying desires and thoughts will come in your mind. Don't rush to satisfy every single desire. So don't respond to all desires that take you down the wrong path. So thus, Krishna effectively defeats the 5 arguments that Arjuna has made. When Arjuna says, I am very compassionate, I cannot kill others, Krishna says, you're not killing anybody because the soul never dies. And when Arjuna says, but then I can't enjoy, how do you expect me to enjoy after killing so many people? And that's that win-win calculation that Krishna gives. If you win, you will enjoy the kingdom. If you die, you will go to heavenly planets. So either which way, you'll enjoy it. When Arjuna says, everything will get destroyed, family tradition will get destroyed, Krishna is reminding him the whole purpose of following the Vedic scriptures is to actually serve me. So if you serve me, you don't have to worry about all of the dharmic principles in the Vedic scriptures. Just learn to serve me first. What a fear of sin. Krishna is saying, if you fight as per my instruction, there is not going to be any sinful reactions because now you're working to please me. You're not working to please yourself. And when Arjuna expresses his indecision, I'm not sure which is better, me killing them or they killing me. Krishna says it's better that they are killed because by the process of killing, the sinful activities will stop. And these souls will get an opportunity to take on a new body, begin a new life, and not continue with the sinful activity. So at some point, sins have to be put to a stop, and sometimes the best way is through death. So this is the essence of this particular chapter. I'm just going to go over a few more things, and then we'll conclude the session. So Arjuna's choice here was, should he fight or should he flee? And he thought not fighting is a better option because he'll avoid sin. And Krishna corrects him by saying, actually, walking away from the battlefield is very sinful because you are abdicating your duties and responsibilities. So what has Krishna done so far? When Arjuna asked the question, I don't know which is better, me killing them or they killing me. Have you noticed Krishna did not answer that question? What did Krishna do? Krishna used various lenses to tell Arjuna, no matter which way you look at the situation, if you use it through the lens of jnana, then you will understand that the soul never dies. If you use the lens of karma kanda, which is to satisfy your material desires, then all of us have to work for material gain. If we want something, we have to work for it. Sometimes we have to sacrifice. So even then you have to fight because that's your duty. But if you want to fight and not have the negative results come to you, then you should become knowledgeable, do your duty, and become detached from the results. Then when Krishna talks about the sthita prajna, which is actually become fixed up in me, don't worry about anything else. Because if you do as I am telling you to do, I'm in control, you don't have to worry about consequences. So Krishna has given Arjuna various ways in which he can analyze the situation for himself and come to the same conclusion. Jnana means fight, karma kanda means fight, buddhi yoga means fight, sthita prajna means fight. The conclusion will still be the same no matter which lens you look at. So by describing a little bit of Sankhya Yoga, a little bit of Karma Kanda, a little bit of Buddhi Yoga, which Prabhupada translates as Bhakti Yoga, and a little bit of this description of a self-realized soul from shlokas 54 to 72, Krishna has answered Arjuna's question. Which is better? Better for him to fight. He should not worry about whether he gets killed or the other party gets killed. So, from argumentation to slow submission, Arjuna was arguing his case in chapter 1. And then he submits to Krishna and says, actually, to be honest with you, I really don't know what the right answer is. You please guide. So we said the single word summary for yesterday's chapter was lamentation. Why was Arjuna lamenting? Because he had forgotten his true identity. So the single word summary for today's chapter is identity. So Krishna has told Arjuna his real identity is that he is a spirit soul. So Krishna is telling Arjuna one has to elevate one's consciousness to create a better reality for oneself. Our consciousness determines what we see. If we practice Krishna consciousness now, why is it called Krishna consciousness? We said the symptom of the soul is consciousness. We also said the soul is seeking the Supreme Lord all the time. That's the food it desires. So if we practice Krishna consciousness now, then we will be Krishna conscious at the time of death. So even if Arjuna dies on the battlefield and he dies thinking of Krishna, he doesn't have to go to the heavenly planets. He will go straight back to the spiritual world. So ultimately, Krishna is asking Arjuna to elevate his consciousness, not just be here in this level, rise above and see that everybody is a spirit soul. We all have duties and responsibilities, and therefore we must focus on performing those duties and responsibilities and not worry about the consequences. So the identity crisis is slowly getting rectified in this particular chapter, where Krishna is telling Arjuna, your real identity, Arjuna, is that you are not this body, that you are actually a spirit soul. So we'll stop here for today. Be happy to take any questions that you may have.